All right, let's go to something else that I find very, very interesting. So apparently, Dan Lambert, who is the owner and proprietor of American Top Team, one of the truly great teams in mixed martial arts, has issued something, Brian Campbell, of a gag rule. The way I understand it is, unless there is a bout agreement signed between two competitors, two fighters inside of ATT, Fighter X, Fighter Y, they both train at ATT, he does not want any trash talk. Now, he said he understood that if you've got a fight coming up, hey, you got to promote it. That's just part of the business. But outside of that, the gag rule stays. Brian, let's go to you first on this. Your sense of things about why this rule was made. I think we kind of know, but I just want to hear your thoughts on it. And two, is this smart, or is this too much of a, is it too heavy of a burden?
No, it's really smart, and it had to be done because of extreme circumstances, which is Colby Covington, Luke. Let's wake up. This is the Colby Covington rule. We all know it. The reason why I love that this happened was, look, we know how great the team there at ATT is, what Dan Lambert and company have built. Mikey Brown, who's the Brazilian fellow? I call him Brazilian Shrek, which is probably insulting. You know the guy.
Oh, that's Conan Silveiro.
Conan, my man. Yes. Look, they've built something so truly special. They're a powerhouse team, and what can potentially break that up? Something rotten in the inside. And when you have the potential, when Colby has built this outward villainous character, to see him get in fistfights with a Poirier or a Jorge inside a camp, obviously that's a poison. You want to address that right off the top. I love that Dan said two things. One, which you mentioned, which is, look, if you got to fight together, that's fair. You got to promote it. But two, us in the pro wrestling side, we know of Dan Lambert's history. He played a heel manager with Impact Wrestling a couple years back. He's got one of the largest pro wrestling belt collections. He puts the blame on himself for loving the trash talking that is so affiliated with pro wrestling a little bit too much and allowing that to become a thing. And then, Luke, you see it every time we're interviewing Joanna. Every time we're interviewing anyone, we're bringing up Colby Covington within the first 3 or 4 questions. You want to cut that crap down now. You want to bring everybody back to the team level. Smart move, Dan Lambert.
Look, there's 2 ways you can run a super team, right? You can do the AKA model, which is we're going to have one guy who's going to be our guy per weight class. We're going to have our Luke Rockhold. He's going to be our guy at middleweight. We're going to have Cain Velasquez. We got Daniel Cormier. Well, one of you is dropping down and one of you is not. So DC says, you know what, Cain, welcome me into this team. I'm going to make the sacrifice. I'm going to go down to 205. Now, in Cain's absence, we know that was not necessarily the case, or when he fought in Strikeforce, that wasn't the case either. But they were deferential towards each other for being the men in that gym, and that was how they remained cohesive. And all those years where Dana White was like, we're going to get Fitch and Koscheck to fight, they never did. Now, to what extent they were offered, I don't know. But they were adamant. It wouldn't matter if they were offered. We were never going to fight each other. That's one model. The other model is what ATT has, which not only has an affiliate system around the country, but inside that Coconut Creek facility, they've got so many heavyweights, so many lights, so many junior, or middles and welters and lights and feathers and all the way down. And they're coming from Brazil. They're coming from across the country. They're changing teams. It goes on and on and on. It is not possible in that kind of model to not have some clash. You're right, though. If you're going to have that model, and you're going to have people, so many elites in one weight class, in one organization, Brian. It's not like they're spread out evenly between Bellator and ONE and UFC and other organizations. They're all kind of clustered in that particular organization. So if that's going to be the case, you have to have some kind of established order that doesn't ruin the gym. You cannot have a couple of bad apples spoil the bunch. And Colby Covington's trash talk has been widely debated about its value, about its merits, and whatever position you want to take on that, you can. But I think Dan Lambert doing this was not only the right call, it was the inevitable call. If you're going to have confrontations at your gym, if you're going to have people fighting in the street, if you're going to have people who can't even train, not together per se, but at the same time under the same roof for how ugly it is, you can't run a business. You cannot run a business, not effectively, not under that model. He had to make this call for preservation. Not only was it the right call, Brian, it was the only play.
Right, because inevitably you're not only going to have fights that could slow down the growth of your gym and ruin potential big fights being made, but Luke, you can have factions that develop, and that's when suddenly, one trainer grabs a few fighters and starts his own gym. Smart move overall. Look, I've been there. That's a very impressive organization they have down there. The quality of fighters, the overall attitude and culture inside that gym, very clean and welcoming, if that makes any sense, Luke. I mean, it's a professional environment. Shout out to them for preserving that.
And I'll say last thing on this, a big portion of how you succeed, no matter what your model is of being a super team, whether you're the AKA or the ATT method, is recruitment, right? People come to you from across the country. We just saw Violent Bob Ross went over to ATT. It's a recruiting thing, not just people in the Coconut Creek area who happen to be there. People come to you. But if they hear stories about confrontation and about there's just this disorder there in the business, they're not going to be as eager to come over to your facility and train under your team. Doesn't matter how good everyone else is around you. So this was absolutely not only the right call, this was the only call. Now,
yeah, I mean, it was like that time that Jay was mad at you and he called me up and said, let's go start our own show. Let's do afternoon combat. Let's do it, bro. I was like, no, bro. Luke and I, day one-ish. All right.
You know what, Jake called me this weekend. You know what he said? And he said, hey, Luke, if I masturbate at an Arby's, is that going to get me coronavirus? And I said, it could, Jay. He goes, well, wait a second. Is masturbating at an Arby's a symptom of coronavirus? And I said, could be either, Jay. I just don't know. I'm just pointing that out. I was like, Jay, it's a very weird call, but you do you, my friend. Just wear gloves.